to a new normal. So we are meeting each other virtually. And we've all adapted so quickly to this new virtual environment that we're all in. And I'm very happy to host this program today and to welcome all of you, and looking forward to having an enlightened discussion, an insightful discussion from the experts. I would now like to introduce to you our esteemed chief guest for this program, Mrs. Vidya Shah. She is our chairperson and CEO of EdelGive Foundation, the philanthropic initiative of Edelweiss Group, one of India's leading diversified financial services group. Over the last decade, she has steered the growth of Edelweiss's social investments to develop EdelGive Foundation into a strategic philanthropic organization. In addition to being a non-executive director at Edelweiss, Vidya also serves on the board of various prominent CSOs such as Agastya International Foundation, Janagraha Center for Citizenship and Democracy, Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy at Ashoka University, Man Deshi Foundation, and the Indian School of Public Policy. She has been recognized as India's top 100 women in finance by Association of International Wealth Management of India in 2019. Vidya ma'am, before I invite you on stage to give us talk to us, there's a small video clip that I would like to play. Hari, if we could have the video clip, please. Thank you. That was a small sneak peek into Edelweiss, the previous edition. Edelweiss, Ed Talks, sorry. So Ed Talks has become a flagship event every year for us. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite our chief guest, Mrs. Vidya Shah, to say a few words. Ma'am.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome everyone. I hope that in today's times of COVID, each of you and your families are well and keeping safe. I'm positive, as we all are, that this shall pass soon and we shall all be up and running and hopefully meeting in Fountainhead as we usually do. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed guests today, Shree Vishal Solanki, who is District Commissioner of Education, Department of Education, Government of Maharashtra, Shree Atul Kulkarni, who is also the member of the Board of Directors of IIM Shillong and a long friend of Edelweiss, Professor P. Murli Manohar, the member of NCERT, Srimati Dr. Madhushree Sauji, who is All India Secretary Vidya Bharati, Srimati Deepa Bhushan, who is the Director of C.P. Goenka Group of Schools, and Father Jude Fernandez, Principal of St. Mary's in Mumbai. Thank you all for taking out the time and joining us to discuss and deliberate on this very important session on the new Education Policy 2020. As all of us who are in some way connected to the field of education know that the first education policy was actually written in 1966, soon after independence, with the vision to lay down a game plan for transformative education in India. And it wanted to be a radical reconstruction so that quality education would be available to every child in the country. And it has been 54 years since the first NEP was implemented, but nevertheless, we have come a really long way with a national school system, with free and compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14. A lot of work in developing teachers and teaching quality, and of course, a lot more than that. With a vision for a quality education system, the MHRD approved the NEP on 29 July this year. And we truly believe that this will contribute to developing an equitable and a vibrant society by providing high quality education for everybody. For us at EdelGive, I think the NEP has been a path breaker in terms of rethinking how education can be made available to every child. And renaming the department from MHRD to Ministry of Education itself, I think is a great positive step forward. In addition, I think thinking about the separation of functions within education at the government level, creating a level playing field for both private as well as public schools, emphasis on regulatory reform, and then a lot of work on and thinking behind assessment and testing frameworks, such as also creating this separate body parak for sample-based assessment of all students. And then the national testing body to offer common tests for higher education entry. And finally, one of the things that I also feel very positive about is strengthening the National Institute of Open Schooling with its state counterparts, because that makes currently out-of-school children also provide access to them to be able to complete their education. Some of you may know about our work at EdelGive in the area of education. We've been around for 12 years in a formal way. Before that, a lot of work got done directly from Edelweiss. And one of our largest portfolios is in education. Overall, we work with 43 non-profit NGOs in 15 states of India. But education is something that's really dear to our heart. Our largest flagship project is with the Government of Maharashtra, where we work with the government at the block level and at the school level, at the community level, in 7 districts of Maharashtra. These are what were earlier called special focus districts. So these are districts which have their own challenges around access and retention of children, particularly because they're highly tribal, there's a high degree of migration, and there are multiple dialects that are spoken there. But ultimately, I think all our work in education is grounded on the fact that we believe that all children must have access to quality education, irrespective of their background, their gender, their socio-economic standing. And we also believe that all school-going children need quality education because it is important for their holistic development. And our ambition is to be one of the contributors to shape and give direction to the resolution of some of the system-level issues that block the availability of access to quality education in our country. So our constant work is around how do you break these obstacles and how do you move towards providing quality education for all children, but in particular to girls and to children of deprived communities by aligning with SDG 4. Because SDG 4 and investments in quality education will also enable us to address other SDG goals of better health, of reduction of poverty, and then gender inequalities. So it's very important, this focus on SDG 4 and aligning what we want to do with quality education with the overall framework of the NEP is one of the efforts we've been making. So understanding the multiple factors which contribute or which hinder educational achievement, we adopt a multi-pronged approach towards the problem. In the larger arena, or the problem of access to quality education is actually a problem of three broad interconnected areas, which is access, retention, as well as quality. And then you have gender and social equity as cross-cutting themes. And we like to work at all levels of intervention through individual, community, and government systems to ensure sustainability of impact. So to show today's discussions, I don't want to take too much time because we have such esteemed people with a lot of expertise sitting there, and I'd like to hear them more than myself. So I'm sure today's discussions and deliberations will help all of us in understanding and playing our role in ensuring that every child in this country gets access to high quality education. So thank you for having me today, and many best wishes for a great and engaging and productive discussion this morning. Thank you again. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Vidya ma'am, for those introductory words. And yes, we at Edelweiss are proud of the work that EdelGive is doing in the field of education. And we are all torchbearers for all the volunteering work, and we are, excited and always supportive. And I'm sure everyone else that EdelGive is associated with is also really very happy and encouraging and wants to move forward in this area. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your introductory speech. And we are really honored to have you here today with us. Thank you very much. To quote Ben Franklin, "If a man empties his purse into his head, no man can take it away from him. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." And that's why education is, it's the basic. It's the absolute fulcrum without which we cannot have anything else surrounding it, livelihood, jobs, knowledge. And, to that extent, I would like to express my gratitude to all the teachers, you principals, heads of institutions, educators, people who are in policy framing, and all those who are associated with education, that I would salute you that the noble work that you do is remarkable, it is commendable, and we see so many young, bright minds, full of energy, full of ideas, and that's all owing to the work that all of you do. So with a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for playing your role in education, in shaping our children, in shaping the next generation or the future of India. Let's get into the national education policy, which is, I think, the hot topic for 2020 besides the pandemic. So I would like to now introduce to you Shree Atul Kulkarni ji, who is one of our esteemed panelists. And let me give you a little bit of secret. He is the force behind getting this entire program together. So, sir, I have to thank you. I would like to introduce Shree Atulji. He is a member of the Board of Governors for Indian Institute of Management, Shillong. He is also a member of the Board of Governors for the National Institute of Industrial Engineering, NITI, Mumbai. He is a chairman of a trust, Students' Experience in Interstate Living. He is the global working president of People of Indian Origin Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Such a celebrated panelist we have with us today. Shree Atulji, I invite you to give us your vision on NEP 2020. All yours, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar and good morning to everyone. Thank you, Edelgive, for hosting this webinar on a very important topic. And I thank Vidya ji for supporting this initiative through the foundation. And of course, my friend Brian and Sheila and other distinguished panelists. I'm actually I wanted to listen to the esteemed panelists, but I've been forced to speak for a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to just read out or probably reflect on some of the statements that the policy document has, because I think that is important for us to understand and lay the foundation and see the policy in that perspective as to why this policy and why at this time and what is the relevance of NEP 2020. Let me say that probably this is the first integrated education policy that the independent India is seeing. Hitherto, we have had multiple variants of education policies, be it immediately after independence and the last one in 1986, which was later modified in 1992. But they were basically all the policy documents or the structures suggested based on 1835 report of Lord Macaulay in the British Parliament, which was basically to create the huge human resource to serve the colonial powers at that time who were ruling us. This is for the first time the education policy which is talking about the Indianness, and the policy is therefore deeply rooted in the value system and the rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge and thought that has been guiding light for the centuries and the generations in this country. We know that education lays a particular emphasis on the development of a creative potential of each individual. It is based on the principle that education must develop and not only cognitive capacities, both the foundational and numeric capacities, but higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking, problem solving, but it should also address the societal, ethical, emotional capacities and the challenges that every single individual faces. The aim of education, as our ancient document says, was not just acquisition of knowledge as preparation for life in this world or beyond schooling, but was a complete realization of liberalization of oneself. World-class institutions like Nalanda, Takshashila, Vikramshila set the highest standards of multidisciplinary teaching and research and hosted scholars and students from across the backgrounds and countries. So our education system was never straitjacketed. Our education system was never confined to a particular stream like arts, commerce, science, technology. We have seen scholars who had expertise in various fields, be it through these great institutions like Nalanda, Takshashila, or even the basic unit of Gurukul system that we had, where a child or a student was offered education of its choice, which somehow we lost in between. The Indian culture and philosophy have had a strong influence on the world. We all know that, whether it is the Chinese scholars or even those scholars who came from the West, they have talked about it. These rich legacies to the world heritage must not only be nurtured and preserved for posterity, but also restructured and enhanced, looking at the current challenges that the humanity is facing in this century and beyond. I think this is what is the fundamental approach that the new policy has adopted. And therefore, this is clearly documented. Why A, B, C, D, E? Why higher education in certain fashion? Why primary education in certain manner? Why this multidisciplinary action? Why we are talking about the academic bank of credit? Why that multiple entry exit? All of that flows from this fundamental vision that education must liberate every single individual. I mean, Sa Vidyaya Vimuktaye is just not a statement, but it is something that every single individual in this country wants to achieve. The new education policy, therefore, must provide to all students, irrespective of their place of residence, a quality education, which Vidya, you talked about, with particular focus on historically marginalized and disadvantaged underprivileged groups, which I'm sure each one of us wants. We don't want any section of our society, of our, people in the nation to deprive because of some disadvantage, whether it is the locational disadvantage, cultural disadvantage, or any other. A major development since last policy of 1986, which later on was modified in 92, has been the right of child to free and compulsory education, which again you referred to, Vidya. So I think this is where the policy comes from. Let's look at what are the principles of this policy. The education system aims at providing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution. Of course, the Constitution also flows from our history, from our ancient practices. Therefore, this very well dovetails into the culture and our ethos. A good education institution is one in which every student wants to go. He's welcomed, he's cared, and he loves that he is taking education in that institution. The fundamental principles that will guide this education system, therefore, going forward, after we start working on this education policy, in my opinion, are recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student, holistic development of his academic as well as non-academic spheres. I'm sure the experts are going to talk about it, because there is no concept going forward of extracurricular. All of that is now going to be part of academic system. Therefore, it is both academic and non-academic spheres where we want the child to excel. Flexibility, that is going to be again a key word for this education policy. No hard separation between arts, science, curriculum, extracurricular activities between vocational and academic streams. Multidisciplinary, emphasis on conceptual learning and understanding rather than rote learning and preparing for examination. I think this is something which every child dreams. Every child in this country, like you and me, have always wanted to understand the principles and concepts rather than preparing for examination. So I think this is going to be a very, very welcome development. Promoting multilingualism and power of knowledge in teaching and learning, not just limit to one or two language, whether it is the mother tongue or whether it is the local languages or foreign languages. The policy allows a student to pick up his language of choice and preference for his understanding and learning. Extensive use of technology, which I am sure is going to be something which is of great importance and interest to many people, because that will open up a lot of opportunities for many technology service providers. Full equity and inclusion is the cornerstone of education decisions to ensure that all students are able to thrive on educational system. Synergy in education across all sections. I mean, right from primary education to higher education to research. I mean, there is a synergy. There is a continuous progress that will be monitored. And for the first time, I'm happy to see that teachers are at the center of the education policy that we have announced. For the first time, teachers will be seeing a continuous progress and assessment of their career path. I think that is going to be a very, very important. A very light but tight regulatory framework. We want the education system to be free of all the paperwork. I'm sure these two heads of the institutions and Madhushri would agree to me that, I mean, there's too much of paperwork that we ask the academicians to get into. I think this policy is hoping to relieve education system from that. Therefore, this national education policy envisions an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming India, that is Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all and thereby making India a global superpower. And the best thing is that this development and this achievement of skills, values, and knowledge is not just limited for the benefit of an individual. It is for the development of the society, for the benefit of the nation, and above all, the policy says this is in the interest of humanity, because we always believe that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole universe is my family. Therefore, every single individual student that we train, that we educate, must benefit the humanity. And that is where the new education policy begins. So I leave and I stop here, and I would be happy to listen to the experts going forward. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shree Atul Kulkarni ji. That was very an insightful vision of the NEP, and makes me actually want to kind of, I wish I could go back to becoming a student in order to be a part of this new education system. And nevertheless, we will see our children and the future generation reaping the best of this new system, which is a holistic approach to education. And so we look forward to it. And thank you, Atulji, for your insight into the broad vision of what the NEP covers. I would like to now introduce to you another of our esteemed panelists, Professor Murli Manohar. Professor Murli Manohar is a member, he has been an awardee of the Best Teacher of the State of Andhra Pradesh in 2007. He has worked as member secretary for Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education under Ministry of HRD, and he is now a member of NCERT, Government of India. Professor, we are really honored to have you here on our panel, and we welcome you to share your insights on the new National Education Policy of 2020. Professor, you're on mute. Kindly unmute yourself.
Oh, I think, is it okay? Is my sound okay, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. Today's chief guest, Vidya ma'am, and the commissioner, deputy commissioner, education Maharashtra, Atul Kulkarni, to whom I know well amongst the panelists, Madhusri madam, and all other guests and participants. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my impressions on the new education policy. I'm talking from Hyderabad. I've been a teacher for 30 years in one of the affiliated colleges of Usmania University. I consider myself a teacher activist. I've been in in the education activity, have the habit of consulting teachers and taking their views, eager to see some changes in the Indian education policy. Now I'm really happy what I have been expecting, the changes in the education. I think they are going to be realized through this policy. Friends, I'm happy that this policy is touches, that education policy, any education policy, it touches the life of each and every citizen. So that way it is very important. As a nation, we need to be very careful, and we have to see what changes will be happening. And it promises a just and equitable society. And friends, there will be a revision and revamping of all aspects of education structure. When we go through this policy, we will understand the revamping of all aspects of education will happen. And it also promises that the system, that it is aligned with the SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goals of UNICEF, and aspirational goals of 21st century student. I don't want to take much time. And as Kulkarni ji sir was telling, that this policy, after 34 years of waiting, the change is going to happen. For the last 34 years, for me, it was a monotonous education, because I was eager to see some changes in the policy. And I say openly that we were, for the last 3 decades, we were just passing our time, and we are following some outdated education system. Anyhow, let us hope that some changes will happen. I have, as being NCRT member, for the last 3-4 years, I have been following what in this process of the writing policy. Of course, little, what do you say, I'm only a follower. I don't have any role, but 1 or 2 discussions I was there in NCRT also. Friends, the biggest issue in the previous education system, it was unanimously accepted that quality was the biggest thing we were missing. No teacher was happy, no student was happy, even parents were not at all happy. And after a big consultation exercise, this policy has come into existence. 2015 onwards, the exercise began. TSR Subramaniam committee, for 2.5 years, they made some exercise. Consultation exercise has been done. We all know 250,000 villages have passed resolution. I had been to 2 villages on duty also, where the village panchayat people, I sat with them, I tried to know their pulse. And all of them, they said the present education is not good. My son completed degree, graduation, and unable to write a single page without mistakes. Not in English, but in mother tongue. So that was those were the feelings of the people, common man, Aam Aadmi feeling. And second thing is, parents said, at least values part. Our children at least do not know how to respect the elders. Values are missing. And so skills part also. After completing graduation, no boy is able to do any job, any profession. So, and that way, we are all facing, the nation is facing, the children, our students are facing some learning crisis. Learning crisis around 23 countries, if they are suffering from learning crisis, we are at the top of these 23. No learning was happening, frankly speaking. No learning was happening. So finally, what I mean to say is, this policy has tried its best to address these issues: ethical part, values part, and learning part, quality learning, and skills part. So that way, holistic approach can be seen here, and the problem is, issue is diagnosed, and a wonderful prescription is given. And how these problems will be solved? If we go through the policy very keenly, what is diagnosed and what is the solution that is shown in this policy? Only 3 things I'll be highlighting. I'll be confining myself to school education, so that other panelists, experts are there. They'll be speaking about other things. The first one is ECCE. For the last 30 years, the words like LKG, UKG, nursery like things. We have been listening to them. And this education was available only to the, children from rich families, advantaged families. And it was not available to the poor children. And first time we have realized where the things went wrong. And ECC, early childhood care education, some injustice was done. My strong feeling is there was a discrimination. Poor children were neglected. And early school, preschool education, it was not at all taken seriously. And first time this policy, Kasturi Rangan policy, recommends this ECC, early childhood care and education. Children from 3 years age to 6 years will have access to the free, safe, high quality education, developmentally appropriate care and education by 2025. This is assured. I calculated some 20 crore children from poor families will be benefited. They will be taken from their mother's lap directly to school. So, and all neuroscientists, they all over the world, it has been accepted that the cumulative brain growth happens before 6 years. So this is very critically important age. Critically important age. Health of the brain, health of the body. So this is very important. This will be taken care of. Nutritious food will be given right from 3 years age onwards, and proper physical growth will happen, brain growth will happen. It is also addressed. And of course, deprived sections, particularly, the children will be benefited. Excellent care will be there, and nutrition will be there, nurturing will happen, some physical activity will be there, and psychosocial environment will be provided. That will be very important for the child. And cognitive to emotional stimulation, this is very important. Stimulation, cognitive stimulation and emotional stimulation should happen during this critical age. So this we neglected, and it did not come to our notice, I think. All over the world, it has been realized long back. And that means proper brain development will happen, and desiring learning curves will be taken care of. So this is the benefit of ECC, and all over universally it is accepted. Investment on ECC, each 1 rupee will be giving 10 rupees benefit. It is calculated like that. So this way, severe learning crisis that what we are facing today, it will be addressed. So particularly, what I mean to say is, advantaged groups, they have greater access to role models at home, and printing material awareness they have, language fluency they have at home, strong learning environment at home, better nutrition and health care. All these things were not at all available to the poor and downtrodden children. Now ECC will be taking care of these children. My point is, it will be a powerful equalizer, and it will be a big game changer in future education policy. So children will start learning cooperation, teamwork, right from 3 years onwards, compassion. What will happen in these ECCE classes? This is mainstream of education now. So children will be, no alphabets will be taught. So no teaching, formal teaching will happen. But some playway methods will be there. So children are expected to learn cooperation, teamwork, compassion, communication, all such things they will be learning. So curricular and pedagogical framework will be taken care of by NCERT. So this is a foundational stage from 3 to 6 years. We are instilling excellent multilingual skills also. So this is a big game changer. And the second big change will be happening. We know that the structural change is recommended. Instead of 10 plus 2 plus 3, now it will be 5 plus 2, 3 plus 3 plus 4. So what is this structure? The structure is, first 5 years, I try to explain you ECCE, and the second one is 3, 3, 4. Here in the first 3, the foundational literacy and numeracy. So it will be addressed. Because we are all missing, our children are missing the foundational literacy and numeracy, reading, writing, and performing some basic operations with numbers. This was not happening. Now it will be, minimum learning will be assured. So at primary level. So I think this will be a big change for taking care of literacy and numeracy. During these periods, language weeks will happen, maths weeks are expected, dedicated reading and writing, such things will happen, they are expected. And everything will be fun and puzzle solving sessions will happen. My point is, first time the children will taste the new method of happy learning. Happy learning will be the pedagogy, new pedagogy. And fun learning will be there, as Kulkarni sir was telling. Syllabus curriculum will be reduced and only concepts will be taught. That way, there will be a big change. Another big change is curriculum and pedagogy in schools will be reoriented. So there will be a big transformation in curriculum and pedagogy. Rote learning will not be there in future. And 21st century skills, these are very important. Critical thinking, creative thinking, scientific temper. Children will be learning all these things. Multilingualism and problem solving, ethics, digital literacy, communications. These things will be taken care of. So when you want to teach all these things, there will be teachers. We are expecting teachers need to change the attitude of teachers, because pedagogy will be a big change. Teachers need to learn new methods of teaching. So that way, first 5 years it is
Murli,
okay. Shall I stop here? Yeah.
Yes,
Last. Yes. Last sentence.
Thank you
last
for
sentence.
your.
Yeah.
Sir. Sure,
And big change is assessment also. Kulkarni sir was telling, assessment will be a big changing, and formative testing will be taking place of. So these are the big changes. Right. I think the expectations that we are expecting, whatever it is, it will be, I think, this is the right approach, I think. Thank you, Anandal.
Thank you, Professor Murli. I believe the expectations are really huge from parents, children, and huge responsibility lies with the government as well as all of the educators, the policy framework, yourself in NCERT, where curriculum, pedagogy, everything is going to come into effect, and students are going to be going to a new normal, which is happy learning. And I believe that's a huge responsibility, and we hope and that by the year 2025, when it actually gets implemented, we will see far more smiling faces instead of, children saying, oh, I don't want to go to school, and, things like that. So yes, we are looking forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Murli. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to now introduce another of our esteemed panelists, Shree Vishal Solanki ji. Vishal ji, may I request you to switch on your camera, please?
Yeah, sure, Shalaji.
Welcome, Vishal ji. Mr. Shree Vishal Solanki is an IAS officer presently posted at Pune as Commissioner Education, Government of Maharashtra, and looking after overall administration and various schemes sponsored by central and state government, encompassing pre-primary to higher secondary education in Maharashtra. Solanki ji has vast experience in administration, developmental issues, social sectors, etc. In his present assignment, Mr. Solanki is driven with a zeal to make a positive difference in elementary and secondary education of 25 million children in Maharashtra. Shree Vishal Solanki ji, we welcome you as part of our esteemed panelists to this program, and we'd like to hear from you now on NEP and the implementation that the Government of Maharashtra is looking at, because NEP at the policy level is fine, but seeing it rolled out at the ground level, reaching schools, reaching every child, that's what we want to hear from you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Shalaji. First of all, let me thank and congratulate Vidya ji for organizing this ED Talk on behalf of Edelweiss. I must say that taking keen interest in EdelGive Foundation to support NGOs like Kaivalya, Gyan Prakash, and also SCRT and Government of Maharashtra in improving learning outcomes across the state and addressing equity issues. So I must say that she is not just an active participant in this entire field of education, but an active contributor to really help our children grow and learn. I also thank Atul Kulkarni ji, Shalaji, and all the organizers for giving me an opportunity to interact with all the stakeholders here. We have distinguished co-panelists here. We are discussing this national education policy on the background of COVID and the kind of turbulence that's happening in economy and the world around. And that's why I think it's in this crisis situation, we need to look at it as an opportunity, think out of box, and really prepare our next generation for an uncertain world post-COVID. Because a lot of things which are being said in national education policy have been in discussion, have been carried out in last few decades. The education policy, I see it as a culminating point, which has given a formal recognition on all the brainstorming and all the flaws that we are seeing in our education system. But I would also like to say that there were a lot of good points in our education system. If you look at our millions of Indians who are excelling abroad, they are occupying highest positions in software industry, Silicon Valley, and everywhere else. I think there's a lot of merit in the kind of competitive environment that is there in our education system, and a lot of good points. But there are shortcomings as well. And rightly, the education policy is addressing those shortcomings. So we have to really be best in the world, more competitive globally, and prepare our children for 21st century uncertain world. In this VUCA world, I would say most of the skills that we talk about, critical thinking, collaboration, creative thinking, most of them were required in earlier ages as well. I see that even in 16th or 17th century, without leadership, the warriors wouldn't have really won great battles. So most of those skills were required for humanity in earlier ages as well. But if you look at technology, it is quite specific to 21st century. We are so much dependent on technology. If you look at the finances, the integrated globalization that has happened, if you look at the global citizenship modules, where each and every citizen has to be really aware, conscious, and competent globally, because the competition is global, the problems are global, and the entire earth is becoming, all of us know, it's becoming a one big global village. So we have a huge challenge before us, and education policy is rightly addressing those challenges. But the devil lies in details. The problem is we have one of the best policies in the world in every sector, but when it comes to actual implementation, we many times fare worse. So the problem lies in implementation. To give an example, we are talking about giving 6% of GDP to education for last almost 4 decades, but we have never crossed 3%. So the public-private partnership and roping in private players in socially responsible manner, addressing equity issues are going to be huge challenges. In COVID times, only in Maharashtra, we are seeing almost 2 to 3 lakh children may become dropouts only in this specific year, because children start helping their parents to earn livelihood. They get dropped out for very simple reasons. And the digital divide that's happening. We have children from well-off families who are getting good access to online learning almost 3 to 4 hours a day. But we have another 5 to 10% of children who do not have access to even local TV or community radio channels. And their families are living hand to mouth and find it extremely difficult to get those data packs, get internet connectivity, get simple devices to start teaching their children. So we have huge challenges in terms of equity, in terms of geographical and social diversities. And rightly, the NEP has to be implemented in such a way that we address those challenges. Government of India is giving a lot of emphasis on this as we speak. Another such webinar is going on at Ministry of Education, and Honorable Prime Minister is addressing on national education policy. So you can see the kind of importance that is given to this policy, because the kind of world and India that we'll see after 30 years is being decided today in our classrooms. And we have to be really very cautious and careful in ensuring that we ensure child's holistic development. For example, now we have a craze of online classes where children are sitting on screen for 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, and the same habit may get into online addictions, gamings, and so on. So we have to really look at all the pros and cons of each and every step that we are taking, and not just go by the flow of things, but really be careful to ensure holistic development of child physically, mentally, spiritually, intellectually, socially, and so on, which would help us to groom a generation which will have its base in ethical values that our culture has propagated, and at the same time they have professional competence to excel in the fields that they choose. So NEP is delving upon all these points. The Government of India has come out with a specific action plan with timelines of almost 305 tasks to be performed over the next 10 to 15 years, with a goal to make our education system best in the world by 2040. So we have another 20 years time, and we have a lot to achieve. So only government cannot achieve this, only NGOs cannot achieve these, only corporate players, society as such cannot achieve this. We have to all come together and really address these challenges. So NEP has a lot of good things, a lot of things which probably will need more improvisation and basically spelling out details which will help us to ensure its effective implementation. The key lies in effective implementation, and to address the needs of almost 12 to 15 crore children who are finding it difficult to cross class 12. So in school education, we are trying to bring out those changes in Maharashtra and help other states as well to do the same. So the deliberations in discussions like this really help us to gain new insights into what's going wrong, how do we set it right, and take a way forward which is more effective. So thank you for inviting me here. I would not take more time than this. Would love to hear our other panelists as well. Thank you so much, Shailaji. and all organizers.
Thank you, Vishalji, if I may ask you a question, can you throw some light on Bal Bhavans and how do you see NEP being implemented in the rural areas of Maharashtra? What is the government is the government taking steps towards that? What is your thought on Bal Bhavan? Can you share some light on TET in rural areas, quality of teacher education? Could you share some light on that, sir?
Yeah, the NEP is rightly putting a lot of emphasis on early childhood education, because in this age group of 3 to 6, the children really do extremely well in terms of their brain development, in terms of learning new languages, in terms of their cognitive higher order skills as well. So Bal Bhavans had been a very good concept which helped children to really excel in all their physical and other abilities in games, and engaging them in storytelling and so on. So in ECC we have to integrate it in such a way that our own Anganwadis, our own pre-primary education centers carry out those activities which have been carried out in Bal Bhavan, because with increased allocation of finances, our own pre-primary centers have to take up that role, because probably it would not be possible to set up a Bal Bhavan in each and every village or town due to financial constraints. But we need to really make those Anganwadi centers and pre-primary schools take up that role, which would help our children to excel in their so-called extracurricular activities. Nowadays, it's part of the main curriculum itself, but that should be the way forward, I feel.
Thank you, Vishalji. What about teachers training in rural areas, or even in Maharashtra, even in the urban areas? I'm sure, in affluent areas like Mumbai and Pune, teachers are very well trained. They have access to a lot of, to continuous development for themselves. But how do you see that happening in rural areas? Is there any initiative that the government is taking?
Yeah, I'm glad to share that a lot of initiative is being taken to reach out to almost 6 lakh teachers across the state. We have tied up with Google Classrooms, where Google Classrooms training is being imparted to almost 4.5 lakh teachers across the state. We have a training called Avirat, where class 9 to 12, 41,000 teachers are being trained in giving psychological and vocational guidance to our children in secondary and higher secondary stages. We also have specific modules on English speaking and learning for teachers in collaboration with British Council. So trainings are being imparted to lakhs of teachers across the state in blended modules. So it has online and offline component as well. Similarly, we have a program called Nishtha, where teachers are being trained in all subjects and extracurricular modules. Now this training is being sponsored by Ministry of Education, Government of India, and has reached almost more than 5 lakh teachers. So bridging this divide of rural and urban, we are trying to reach out to all the teachers across the state to really make them competent in pedagogy and other aspects of teaching and learning. Regarding teachers' eligibility test, in Maharashtra, around 4 to 5% children are candidates are passing these exams to be prospective teachers. But with dearth of government jobs and many other constraints, they will have to find themselves in self-finance schools and other type of schools. But we have a lot of challenge in giving employment to almost a few million prospective candidates who desire to be teachers. But when it comes to really quality of teachers, we have to be really careful, because to meet the goals given in our national education policy, we have to have good teachers. We cannot compromise on it. Government of India is giving a 10-year plan to weed out substandard training colleges and have only one B.Ed 4 years degree for our new teachers. So there are a lot of reforms being thought of, and we are trying to reach out to our candidates both in urban and rural areas to cope up with that kind of expectations.
Wow, that's wonderful, Vishalji, to know of the various initiatives that the government is taking in developing teachers training, and your tie-up with Google. And I'm sure with more support the government, will be able to achieve what the NEP has set out, the guidelines that the NEP has set out. And with dynamic people such as yourself, Vishalji, I am sure that the Government of Maharashtra will be able to overcome all the hurdles that they have, and we will see NEP becoming a reality. We will see a lot of rural children getting quality education and also joining in, getting mainstreamed into education, and we will have lesser rate of dropouts. That's what we hope for, and that's what we pray. We thank you for your valuable insights and wisdom on this topic, Vishalji. And I do hope you will stay with us for a little more while, as you have another VC scheduled, but I do hope you will stay with us for some time more.
Sure.
I would
Thank
also
you,
now, thank you, sir, thank you. I would like to introduce Dr. Madhushree Sauji, one of our esteemed panelists. Dr. Madhushree Sauji is the trustee of Savitribai Phule Mahila Ekatma Samaj Mandal, Aurangabad, and also Bhosla Military School in Nasik and Apna Club. Dr. Sauji is founder of Omkar Balwadi and Omkar Vidyalaya. She is also the All India All India Secretary of Vidya Bharati, Akhil Bharatiya Shiksha Sansthan. Dr. Madhushree, we are really privileged, honored to have you here as our esteemed panelist to talk on NEP and give us some of your insights, your opinions, and take us a little more deeper into NEP. Dr. Madhushree.
Am I audible, Shaila?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Edelweiss, Vidyaji, Atulji, for inviting me. Shailaji was just communicating everything to me. So really, thank you very much. It takes much more time to communicate everything in a right way, in the right time. So thanks a lot. I will be focusing on a specific areas of the national education policy so that it will be covered. The time is too less and the area should be covered is vast. So Atulji said the vision. So I will say that what is India centered? If I say underline word of vision, that is India centered, that is what is the aim of education then? It's the aim of education is not just acquisition of knowledge for preparation of life in this world or for the life beyond schooling, but for the complete realization and liberation of self. That as Atulji rightly said, Sa Vidya Ya Vimukta. So how you will be achieved? It is by the language only. The world exists. The world exists in words. Even with a child also, his world is his word. He may not say, but still the word is inside his body. So if I say how the language makes a difference, a simple example, I am really proud to be a guest of Edelweiss. Though I am saying guest, a very specific word. In schooling, you see that there are many books where there is written odd man out. So if it is Indian centered, there is no odd man in India. So what one should call it as, who is the guest in this picture? If you put 3 flowers and 1 fruit, one should say, who is the guest? And that is the language beauty of India. That is, we call it Atithi, and Atithi Devo Bhava. So thank you very much for inviting me again. This is called India centered. So once you say that it is multilingualism and power of language, these are the 2 words. Multilingualism means must be more than 2, and power relates with something which we'll see afterwards. So all the language, Indian languages, they are expressive, very rich and very scientific. All the languages in the India. Though there are 6 or 8 classical languages, which have an ancient scripts about 2000 years. This policy says the foundation course should be in mother tongue, local language. Bilingual approach can be taken. Third, right from the first policy for language, it says that the three language can be opted. Three language formula, right from first policy, it should be carried forward. So what do our language have and what our language don't have? So our language don't have unphonetics, a very less grammatical exceptions we have. We don't have grammatical exceptions, much more you can say, and complicated spelling of the words. And what we have a high quality, vastly sophisticated, ancient, medieval and modern literature available for education in Indian context. If it is in Indian context, it will be relatable, easily and relevant for the children. It is very obvious. So why to promote all these languages? It is multilingualism. Because the promotion of language expand the horizon of a citizen. The horizon of citizen promotes the culture, and the better culture promotes a better education, and better education is a national integration, turns to national integration. That vision is first word, that is India centered. So multilingualism is a must if we want to have an India centered education policy. So that is how the multilingualism is. So what is that new education policy has done for this? There are many things. I will just enumerate few so that I can complete this way. So bilingual approach, I have already said. It is standardizing the sign language also. This NEP says that standardizing of sign language of all states across all country. Then addition of additional language from Indian language from 6th to 9th standard and foreign language from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. You can have an international language in your curriculum and options are much more, you can say. So approach to language learning and teaching. How the approach is towards this multilinguistic? You have to create books. So books should be created. Books are going to be created. How they are created? That will be through Indian translation and interpretation mission, that we call it as ITIM mission. So Indian translation and interpretation mission. Another, if somebody from comes to Maharashtra, that bilingual approach can be addressed. This approach is till 5th standard. One should have a education in mother tongue, at least till 5th standard, they said. Why they have said this? Because all the science of child development and language acquisition, both at international level, says that child learns much more cognitively with the mother tongue. So they have advised. It is not the love for any language, but it is a scientific way to get our children in future with better cognition. Another thing what they have promoted, why this has not happened? Let us look back. Why this has not happened? Because after the independence, there are many people, you can say 15% people who spoke English. Right now also there are 15% people who spoke English and the class is elite. I am also speaking in English. So the class in front of me is elite class among the 15%. 54% speaks Hindi. In that way, it is a power game of English. So what they want, what they have said, multilingualism.
Dr. Madhushri, you have gone on mute, ma'am. Dr. Madhushri, you're on mute. We cannot hear you. Dr. Madhushri, please unmute.
It has given equity and inclusion in society, and there is a big divide. And so this power center of English should be shifted to all Indian languages. These are the scientific languages. So language teaching should be created, teachers should be recruited. In policy, they say that communication language should be local, importance and prominence should be returned to Indian language, space and respect should be given. To break the current divide and economic elite and rest of the country, the instruction should be in mother tongue and conversation should be in mother tongue or local language, you can say. We are expected that in 1960s English will be an international language, but it doesn't happen. There are many countries who have run their all the things in that, but it is true that science and technology are still in English. So we have to be acquainted, well versed with the English. It is not that I am telling I am against English, but what I am going to tell you that multilingualism will be an India-centered policy and it should be inculcated. So the teachers for Indian language should be taken. 2 years courses for languages, classical languages are there. There are many programs they have promoted in national education policy. So this is for multilingualism. So how this multilingualism, second vision is equitable. The underlying word in vision is equitable. So what we will see that the equitable and inclusive education, every children have equal opportunity to learn and think so that participant and learning outcomes are equalized across all genders and social categories by 2030. So what are this national education policy says that some underrepresented group, that is a says what they say, that is gender identity, you can say woman and transgender, cultural identity, special needs, that is with special disabilities, and socio-economic disadvantaged children. So Shailaji have given me a subject that socio-economically disadvantaged children. So they have put a special education zone that is called SEZ, S-E-Z. How that SEZ will be prepared? The area will be declared according to the social development, according to the socio-economic indicator. For example, tribal in MP, you can say, tribal areas of MP. What central government is going to do is going to support in 2:1 proportion to state for this SEZ. Then availability of and development of teachers in that area, the alternative pathway for recruitment of under-registered this group, underrepresented group, which is not representing the education as such. The parent-teacher ratio will be 25:1, pupil-teacher ratio will be 25:1. And how this will be created? This will be created in the foundation. They have said that the targeted scholarship in one click. You will get a targeted scholarship in one click, and that you will have to work for SEZ area only. Another alternative mean is support from remedial instructional educational program, that is Anganwadi program, and national teachers program and national tutor program. So NTP is national tutor program is something different. That is, they will take a good student, performing students from a school, and they will teach them through Diksha, and that tutor will teach the SEZ area. That is another. Then breakfast is another that they have implemented for this disadvantaged people. special internship under various corporate sector they have department, and distance wise financial support, district wise financial support also they are going to do that. How they will say that this is a sales and somebody is going there? There is a maintenance. So maintenance of data will be there online. There will be a national repository and educational data, that is NRED. So Central Education Statistics Division will research on that, whether they have come up, do they need another way, or do they need another teacher or expert teacher in English or English, Marathi, or Hindi, whatever it is. So all this will be research based. So all these NRED and CESD, they will work together to uplift this socio-economical backward class, I can say.
Dr. Madhushree, if I may interrupt here, if I may come in here, you spoke of multilingualism, and I want to go to Shree Vishalji, because he has to leave us in a while. I want to go to you, Shree Vishalji, to ask you, in multilingualism, when we speak about having 3 languages, including our national language, Hindi, and the mother tongue, how do you see that being implemented, or how do you see that coming into an actual timetable for schools, or how do you see that, for example, Mumbai is a cosmopolitan city and everyone has a different mother tongue. So how do you vision that actually happening, the concept of multilingualism? We'd like to hear from you, sir.
So you are
this multilingualism, for a long time, we had been following 3 language policy. That is your own mother tongue, then Hindi, which is our national language spoken widely across the states, and English, which is lingua franca of the world. So these 3 languages had been almost mandatory across all the states in the country. So what is being formally recognized in NEP is that in these 3 languages, we have to start giving instruction in mother tongue to begin with, because studies all over the world have proven that children have more conceptual clarity and their grasping becomes much easier in their first language rather than third language, that is English. So we have to ensure that first children become conversant with ideas and concepts in their mother tongue, and then expressing it in different languages, different media would become important. The problem with our country is we have placed more emphasis on medium rather than knowledge. So I think we have to rightly emphasize knowledge first and then medium. But at the same time, we have to recognize this fact that children at their early age have more ability to learn more languages. So we can have 1 or 2 mother tongues. We have colloquial language at home and maybe another mother tongue. We have a lot of, for example, areas in Maharashtra where the tribal dialects are being spoken by children, and for them Marathi is as much a foreign language as we have English. So we have a lot of complexity here. So we have to ensure that the language that is spoken at home has some kind of symphony with language that is being instructed at school, and then we build up on that foundation with English and Hindi. So if a child is conversant with more than 3 to 4 languages, he has better chances to really express himself well and do further higher education well. There had been a research by Harvard and Yale University which said that Indians are excelling well abroad in higher studies. One reason is they have this multilingual background. So I think from beginning, if we have this right approach and balance the need of instruction in mother tongue and at the same time having fluency in Hindi and English from beginning, from say class 1, this will really help our children to be in an advantageous position vis-a-vis other children who end up having only first or second language.
Right, sir. Thank you, Vishalji, for that insight. Back to you, Dr. Madhushree.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand how it is, you have some children who have two, parents of intercaste marriage, and so they have different mother tongues. And so, it becomes a bombardment of languages for the child. And so in that context, how does multilingualism. Also, we see today foreign languages are also equally important when children go for their further studies or go for their higher education. So yes, the concept of multilingualism is multifaceted, I would say, and it has a lot of, you would be the best expert to tell us further.
No, Vishalji rightly pointed that the children are extremely flexible for any language. So they learn Hindi from TV, they learn Kannada from some servant at home, they learn English at school, they learn Marathi with the mother, and they can learn Punjabi with the if father is Punjabi, they can learn Punjabi too. So it's the language acquisition box in our brain that works very well. It is not against the multilingualism. You can teach them, or they can learn. I can say you cannot teach. They learn many languages right from in early ages. There is a very much flexibility in brain, but what is focused is a cognitive development of a child, and that hampers if you take a language which is not familiar right from her mother's womb. He is familiar with the mother's womb, the language in mother's womb, when he is in mother's womb. So that language is mother tongue. Mother tongue is tongue which is spoken by the mother. That is the language.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
It's all scientific, but we don't have time to spend on that, I think so.
True. I mean, I think we can take only one topic and deliberate for 2 hours, and
yeah, it have a discussion and question answer sessions on language only.
True, ma'am. Ma'am, one question that I'd like to ask you, Dr. Madhushri, is how do you see special schools or special children with special needs being addressed in the NEP? With multilingualism, with other subjects, with different ways of assessment. How do you feel they fit in?
No, it is not like that. They will have a special tutor that they're specially able children. It is not for a gifted also. If somebody is gifted in drawing, it is not necessary that he or she should learn multi languages. They are promoted for that only if they are gifted. Just like that, if specially able children, you have to think in a different way. They have prepared a chart where how the tutors will be, how the vocational trainings can be given to these children, how the life skills, that is more important, that is life skills. Only on hearing they have made, there will be a sign language, same sign language, national sign language, I can say, all the way, even if the local language is different. So if word is something in Maharashtra for milk, and word is something for milk in Kannada, so sign language may be different for that. Under the meaning of that word, sign language can be different. That is permitted. But overall, national sign language for hearing disabled children will be the same.
Right, ma'am. As is also Braille for children who are blind, etc. So
exactly mentioned in National Education Policy for Braille, but it is for hearing, it is absolutely mentioned. It comes under Braille comes under, I think so. It is in specially able children. That is all disabled.
Because when we talk of in education being inclusive, then we have to address even all these areas, children with special needs, etc., gifted children, children who require different kind of assistance, not who cannot be in a normal classroom. So that is when it becomes inclusive.
Shaila, beauty of this NEP, what I felt is that the education for transgender, it comes under SAYS, special. It is really, when you hear something like, I think that lady is Zada or something like that, Kadam, on ZTV, I have heard her. So it's really very painful. Nobody looks after them.
Yes.
They are not diseased, they are not, even if disabled are looked after by the family. This transgender, they are out of family, out of society, out of the world. So they do whatever they can do. So they are also under this education. That NEP is beauty, I think so.
Which is great, which is, yes, absolutely true, the beauty of NEP. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Madhushri, thank you so much for your insights on NEP and bringing us the facet of multilingualism and how it can be factored. And I also Vishalji, who had to attend another VC, so he has left us. Yes. I'd like to now move on to our next eminent panelist, Mrs. Deepa Bhushan. I'd like to introduce her. She's the director of CP Goenka Group Schools. Mrs. Deepa Bhushan is an educationist with over 25 years of experience and expertise in handling the 360-degree domain of education with a proven record of success in the business management of schools, curriculum design and implementation, coaching and mentoring of school leadership, teacher and leadership professional development. She has been the eminent speaker at various platforms like the World Education Summit, Education World, International School Awards, Dubai, Schools New, Bloomberg Education Panel Discussion, and Amity University Principals Conclaves. Under her leadership, CP Goenka Group of Schools has ranked among the top 10 schools of Mumbai. Congratulations, ma'am. And we're really happy, honored to have you here on the panel. Before Mrs. Deepa Bhushan speaks, I'd like to tell all the participants that if you have questions that you'd like us to take, kindly put them in the chat box to Mr. Bijoy De Silva, who will be curating those questions, and we will take up those questions as and when time permits. So do type your questions in the chat box. We are eager to hear also what you have to say, what you have to ask, and we want to make this as interactive as it can get. So without further ado, Mrs. Deepa Bhushan, I welcome you to this panel and I would like to hear your views, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you to Ms. Vidya, she's not here right now, but Mr. Brian and of course Sheila for inviting me for this panel. It's a pleasure to be here today among such esteemed co-panelists. I'm sure this has been a very informative and educative session even for all the attendees because it has been one for me also. I think the NEP is allowing for so many perspectives to come through and it's great to hear such honored co-panelists. Well, if I had to say something about the NEP, it would be finally. Finally, it's here, you know. Like Vishalji said, it's actually a culmination of what we have been doing in bits and pieces across the years. It's just that now the NEP will give a thrust to the direction that we all need to move in on a larger scale. You know, one of the things that we all must know that India as a country is very multifaceted. You know, so we've been you've got so many states, so many cultural contexts, so many financial levels, such different access to resources. And if you have to put all of this together into this one pot and say, come up with the solution, it's not easy. So if anyone's looking towards the NEP to say, this is the solution, it's not going to be. We all have to work towards that solution and we have to find meaning from what this policy document is saying. I believe that the ethos of the NEP is very good. What it is asking for and what it is guiding us towards the direction that is giving us is much needed. You know, there's so much happening in pockets across our country. And let me tell you, not only in international schools or private schools, but even in Balwadis and some government schools, I've seen great work happen. Now, but this is happening in smaller pockets. This has to become larger scale if education has to be meaningful, if it has to help children to deal with the future. You know, one of the most beautiful things that I read in the NEP, and that's where the change comes from, is, you know, the words greater attention to life aspiration. These are the words that are written in the NEP. And I think, therefore, the people who have put this together have really thought this through. It's not talking about just a career. It's not talking about life skills. It's not just talking about values. It's not talking about the academics or the content that you need to know, the knowledge that you need to know, but it's really talking about life aspirations for an individual that makes life so much more meaningful. So if we are looking for our children to have meaningful lives in the future ahead, because we've seen in today's times with the pandemic, with everything, that, the kind of skill sets that you need are much more than just knowledge or even application or just analysis. It's actually, do you have the resilience, the adaptability to live your life in a better way? Not be stressed out, say, okay, this too shall pass, have a growth mentality. So when you need all this, you have to start early. To say that I'm going to change when I'm 40 years old or when I achieve 50 years old or when I achieve something, it's not going to happen. So you have to start at the root, and the NEP has started at the root, which is actually the babies, the young children. So when the NEP brought in the ECC, the younger children, when they brought in early childhood education, they actually are starting at the base, and they're saying, let's start from here, because what foundation we put in, that's what's going to take the future ahead. So I wanted, so when I'm reading the NEP, of course, and across the NEP, there are such amazing statements that are there that you take forward. But for me, a lot of the words that come out, and I'm just going to actually talk about these key words, because these key words really reach out to you, where it's talking about classroom transactions, looking at outcomes, capabilities, dispositions, experiential learning, art integrated, discovery, analysis, discussion-based learning, key concepts, ideas, applications, problem solving, fun, creative, collaborative, exploratory. You're looking at these gamut of words that is all coming in into those lines that are there. But really, what does it mean? What does it mean? It says that make learning meaningful, make it engaging for the learners, make it real life applicable, because kids need to understand how to apply their learning. We've all our lives sometimes wondered why we learned those quadratic equations in math. Why did we do a particular thing? And therefore we said, forget it. After my 10th standard exam, I don't know how many of all of you know, what is your syllabus that you remember right now? So when the NEP is talking about the 10th grade exams, which need to be more meaningful and not that grade, which children actually then make it their identity, because they don't get into the institutions that they are looking for. It allows them to live more meaningful life, to say that I can do something that I want to, and I can rise above this grade. Which is why the NEP is saying, let's relook at the grade 10 exams, the grade 12 exams, let's relook at the competitive exams. All this needs to be done and will be done, but it's a slow process. I think we will need a lot of patience as individuals, as educationists, as parents, as students, towards saying that we have to achieve the outcomes that the NEP is asking for, move in the right direction. The teachers need to be handheld and supported. So the education, when we're talking about fun, creative, collaborative, exploratory learning, it doesn't need to be only for the children. The teachers have to experience it to know its benefit, and therefore know how they can take it into the classroom for the children. Times have completely changed today. You have youngsters, who are kind of so digitally savvy. They're the digital natives. So if they are the digital natives, they need that technology and they know how to take it to the different levels. And if it can benefit, why not? Which is why the NEP also focuses on technology and is asking you to look at technology to support education in a better way. So bringing in learning, experience, all this needs to happen. But my interest majorly is on the implementation of the NEP. And I think that's something that we're all questioning. The first thing that happens is, and I think that is something that happens to all of us in today's times, is we always question. Anything that comes to us, the first thing is, how will this happen? It cannot happen. there are so many, it didn't cover this, it didn't cover that area. But the NEP is it's a broad level document for us. It's a policy document, and that's what a policy document means, that it gives you the guiding light to say this is the direction you have to move in, and the direction that is giving is very right. And this now, how will you contextualize it to your space, to your level of where you are, so whether you are from the rural setup, you're in the urban setup, there are tier A cities, B cities, C cities. Where are you? How does it suit your context? How does it suit the cultural context also of a place? So taking all these elements together, how do you actually weave it to say that, we can take this forward, the ethos of what we're looking at will be achieved and can be done. So I think that's the most important thing that the NEP is telling us. We can all go through the NEP. I'm sure everybody has read it umpteen times, for it to make sense for us. And then say that what can I pick up and how can I take this forward and in my own system.
Correct.
There will be broad steps coming in. There will be a lot of steps coming in for us and what needs to be done. But again, like I said, these will be guidelines. One standardized guideline may not be applicable to all levels because you're looking at different contexts. So that is something I think we should wait for and we all should work towards. So, we must say we have to make NEP a success. How can we all join hands to work towards that and to ensure that it happens rather than even one person saying, no, it cannot. These are the challenges we face. Yes, we face, but along with the challenges, we need to come up with the solutions also and say it's okay to try it out. So if something doesn't work, let's try something else. Because the ethos for education for children as well as for adults, it's very much there in the NEP.
Deepa ji, from what you have said, I'm getting a sense of your resilience in this whole thing. And I must say, very positive. I'm really happy to hear that. I would like you to throw some light on cross-curricular pedagogy when the NEP talks of art-integrated learning or sports-integrated learning. How do you see that, or how do you vision that, or what is that concept to you? And how do we bring it into our schools?
So first of all, we must understand what we are meaning by cross-curricular and why it needs to happen. So, it's a simple day. Simple thing to understand is in my day, like I don't get up in the morning and I say, I'm going to do English between 8 and 8:30. Between 8:30 and 9 only, I will do all math calculations. So if you have any bills that you want me to check, I will do only between 8:30 to 9. And 9 to 9:30, if I have to travel, then only I will look at the Google Maps, but I travel the full day and I have to calculate areas, the distance and the time that I'm going to take to reach a particular place. I need my language for communication. So actually in real life, if you see, your curriculum and everything is mixed up. You're actually applying all the knowledge that you have. So knowledge is available for us in the school system and in the higher school system also as silos. Yeah, but that needs to change because when we look at learning, we're actually applying it throughout in different spaces. So we may learn it in silos, but we also must show children that how your knowledge, the understanding that you have gained really is in connection to certain areas. So these cross-curricular links are in fact easily possible in a classroom. We have been doing it within our school systems and we are able to kind of put it all together because we bring in team teaching also. So you have subject teachers, 2 subject teachers, say a math and a science teacher, physics teacher and a math teacher, because you have a lot of concepts that cross merge actually coming together to teach the subjects. Art really is catharsis. I think everyone needs to understand that any kind of performing art is a must for children, and NEP beautifully asks for it to happen. And so any kind of performing art leads to children being able to express their emotions, and they learn to express themselves in the right manner. So I always say this, that as a country we have a voice. Yeah, but we're also teaching young adults and children that you have a voice, you need to know how to express it in the right manner, at the right time, on the right platform, and that is so important today. So all these bits actually come through with cross-curricular learning, with art integrated learning. So when I'm talking about art integrated, I'm talking really about a performing art or an art. Could be either. It need not be just restricted to arts, which is drawing, painting, coloring, craft, whatever we are looking at, but really a performing art also. So when you're dancing, you do speech and drama, you're acting, so many things are there. So all these things together actually build the base for learning and make learning enriched. Sport, very important. We all know that through team sports, there is so much that you learn. You learn your leadership skills, you learn your values, collaboration. There's so much that's coming through sports. And of course, the physical benefits are completely different, which is your oxygen going to your brain, you're breathing, you're building your stamina, your body is getting better. So all these elements together actually build up a holistic learner, which is so important, and which makes learning meaningful and for life.
Absolutely.
And, I think that's a part of curriculum really which is there.
True. Deepa ma'am, we've got a question from our participants, and I'd like to pose that to you. A participant has asked, how can parents or teachers unlearn and then relearn to meet the demands of conceptual learning and assessment methods? And I'd like to touch upon transformation in assessment methods, if the AI inspired or AI backed methods of assessment and transformation, and if you could throw some light on this.
Sure. So one is when you have to unlearn and relearn. I think something that is so much a part of our DNA is we've always been that grade that we got in any particular subject. So if you got a C in math, you'd always say, I am that C. So if anybody asked you to do anything complex in math, you'd say, I can't do it. I used to always get C in school. I'm not good at maths. And you would actually move on to something else and say, no, I'm better at this, but math I can't do. Why? Just because of that grade that you may have consistently got. For whatever reasons, you may not have understood, the teacher was not good, for whatever reasons, but that's who you are. Now, as parents, to unlearn that space is going to take a lot. Right? It's like literally genetically built, it's a part of our DNA now. Right? Anything that we are is a grade. We look for external validation with anybody giving us marks, and you want to go towards that. So, but parents also want something that is better for their children, and they don't want their children to go through what they have gone. We all today say, right? I mean, you said it earlier when you said that, I wish I could study in today's times with the NEP being here.
Right.
So I think they will unlearn, and it will happen. And what we are seeing about the transformation of assessment that is going to happen, that is being guided in this document is needed because we are just not that academic content. We are so much more as an individual. So for us to self-assess ourselves, first of all, that is so important. So it's important for children to assess themselves. Where do I think I stand? Which brings in a lot of reflection. We need it in our daily activities, don't we? If we want to grow ourselves, we are looking at a lot of reflection. And with the way the NEP is looking at assessment, it will bring in a lot of reflection for children. So it will start early. So you relook at your own practices and then say, okay, this is the gap and this is where I need to grow. So you are taking ownership for your own growth. And I think that's most important, rather than a teacher telling you or a parent telling you you're not doing it. You need to start doing it for yourself. And that's something that needs to start early. So just imagine if it's a part of your DNA, you're going to be doing this throughout. You just know that. So even in your workspace, then when you're going ahead, if you make a mistake or you're looking at something that you haven't done, you say, okay, maybe I need to relook at myself and say, how can I find out? Which brings in more collaboration in teams. And we know that the future is talking about collaboration. So assessment is also not going to be just individualistic in the future. We always talk about we. It's not the I, but the we, and those kind of quotes are always doing the rounds. But we never teach children about this earlier. So if you'll see, assessment is always about the individual, right? Don't copy, don't show, do your own thing. It's your marks. You got top 10. You came in this. None of that. So assessment is going to change to become more project-based, more collaborative, is going to assess the 21st century skills, which is creativity, communication, collaboration. And that is what is going to take this forward. That's how assessment is going to get transformed. It's going to be a slow process, let me tell you. So don't expect a magic wand to come in and things to change. But it's going to happen. And hopefully, if we all pitch in and, all the participants that are there also, if each one takes it upon themselves and we are going to do it in our own spaces, I think, change will be faster. Change will be much faster.
Yes, yes. Yes, Deepa ma'am, I think if we all embrace NEP and say, okay, what is it that I can do, in order to be a part of that bigger we that you talked about, then I think we can achieve and, make it, I've seen that, more than the students, it's a competition of the parents, my child has to get 99.99 and how many ever nines you want to add, So that is kind of, there's so much pressure on the students today. You find students running from one class to the other, to the third, to the fourth, coaching classes. And, it doesn't give a child the time to express himself or herself, maybe through art forms or maybe through something that they like, I remember my son used to go to a Waldorf system of education for his preschool. And there they just, the day was conducted based on the will of the child. They never had a curriculum in place. So if a child, they would have some children coming and just sleeping because they wanted to just sleep. So, they just let the child be. And I feel that is also a learning, when the child is at rest, at peace. Yes, ma'am.
Sheila, if you're looking at, children being innovators of tomorrow, you can't start them by telling them just conform. You have to give them their space to open up, to explore, to bring in, what they believe in also, and, also look at the world from their eyes. Because they are the ones bringing, we're talking about innovation, but my eyes are old now, I'd say that. They are the ones with the fresh set of perspectives, the fresh set of eyes who are looking at the world in a different way. They are the ones who will bring in, innovation. And if I am telling them, no, just look at the world through my eyes, that's not going to happen. We will not have innovation. And then we ask ourselves, why don't we have so much innovation happening in India? Because, we've got the brains here. That's a guarantee,
True,
but give them their space to bring in that innovation, and hopefully, we will be able to do that now.
Yes, and NEP being a holistic approach to education where we integrate art and culture and, there's so much of richness in all of these that it will truly become holistic in a sense.
True. And the thing is that the NEP is also asking you to look at your own history. We have a very rich culture and history. There's a lot of science, in fact, and math background and base that we have as a country. And somewhere in the globalization bit, we started negating that. So whether it is our languages, whether it is the science, the math, the inventions, there's a lot that's happened in India. So it's asking you to keep that as a base and relook at all those things. And I think that's really good because we do need to. Each of us comes with that cultural context and you should not let go of that. If you have that as a base and you build from it, you've already got those 10 steps ahead and you are moving. Now, we've forgotten about those 10 steps, so you are always coming back to ground zero. And then you are starting, but that is there. We have it in our, in our past. Let's relook at that. Whether it is Sanskrit, which is a very scientific language, we know that. Our own languages across the states have a lot of meaning. I mean, Madhushi ji has said that, the context of language is so amazing that In fact, there is a study also that has proved that actually Indians have less Alzheimer's because we are multilingual.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So if you ever want to read up on it, you can, but there is a study that says that, because the neurons in our brain connect so much more because of the connections that are made because of learning so many different languages. So there's so much of science, which is really, so whatever we do, there is a science to it. We need to understand that and go back to our basics so that, we have that place and we can move ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mrs. Deepa Bhushan. That was really amazing, lovely insights, and wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Let me also introduce our eminent panelist, Father Jude. Father Jude, you're last but not least. Father Jude, kindly unmute yourself. Let me give a brief introduction of Father Jude. He's presently the principal of St. Mary's High School in Mazgaon, Mumbai, since 2015. He has a passion for making learning visible among schools and sharing resources. And we've seen that. Father Jude is a people's person, and he's very, popular among all the heads of the minority schools, or the schools that come under the ABE board, and other schools as well. And we like that he loves to share resources, loves to share learning, and loves to share his insights. He assists in animating Mumbai schools for the Brihan Mumbai Inter-School Republic Day, and that's something he does every year, and we've seen it. He has been the Adhyayan Asia Leader Assessor for Schools. He was the principal of St. Stanislaus, another prestigious school, and now St. Mary's, one of the most prestigious schools in Mumbai. So we welcome you, Father Jude, to this forum, and we'd like to hear your thoughts on NEP. We'd like to hear how you as a school would like to go forward implementing it, how you see the changes happening, and what your thoughts are. Father Jude.
Firstly, good afternoon to all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Father, we can. Yes, yes, Father, yes.
Respected organizers, respected chief guests, and all the panelists, also the audience that is watching us, wish you all a very good afternoon. We have heard so much about the NEP. What I will do is quickly highlight certain emphasis, preferences of the NEP, and then move on quickly to the challenges that we have. Okay, so I'll try to do that. Firstly, what's new, what new concepts I hear and what new words and languages I hear in the NEP from the previous policies are these. Firstly, we hear synergy in curriculum. That was never heard. Synergy in curriculum. Teaching faculty is given lots of importance. In fact, it is also called the heart of the learning process. That is, the teachers are the front office, the heart of the learning process. Lots of training program for the teachers is now foreseen. We look at the extensive use of technology. This was never heard before in any of the previous policies, and we are already experiencing technology now. There is also something new, that is continuous reviews. So far, I haven't seen much of reviews happening, at short-term reviews, where we are, where we have to go, how much have we traveled, what was the journey like, and how can we improve on the journey. These things never happen, but the policy says that this will happen. We also have the emphasis on literacy and numeracy as foundational skills. We have the curtailing of dropout rates. We also listen to words like transgender children, which was never heard before, gifted children, disabled children. We have the encouraging of local variations. These are words used. We have databases of literate volunteers. Example, retired scientists, government officials, etc., who will be part of the teaching process. So after you retire, You are not left alone. You're brought back because of your expertise. We have master teachers. We have various experts in various fields of science, maths, languages, arts that will be also reinitiated in schools and the education process. More importance given to the NCERT, who will identify all these skills and create guidelines for us off and on and all through. We have the learning process, that is experiential process, the pedagogy. We are speaking of joyful classrooms, from boring classroom now to joyful classrooms. We have art integrated approach, sports integrated approach. We have course choices. There's lots of course choices being given. We have the flexibility in all the 3 languages. We have spoke a lot of languages this morning. Every student takes a fun course. That is what we see in the document. Important, every student is taught the importance of doing what is right. That means taking ethical decisions or making ethical decisions. Tracking the growth of each student. This was never done before. Tracking of growth right from the time he enters the education process till he ends up passing off and graduating. Motivating and empowerment of teachers, the constant motivating and empowerment of teachers, which also moves on to salary raises and incentives. Recognizing talent is given importance here. The best teachers will get more incentives. Presently, this isn't happening, at least in public schools, it isn't happening. We have the pairing of schools, so much so to, build a new India and to see what a modern student looks like. All this involves the 21st century skills. Yet I see we are not really clear. These are the challenges I'm seeing. What I see is the specifications of this device is excellent. Lots of specifications. We want to put in a lot of features, etc., etc. But how are we going to assemble all these things? And how will the engine run finally? Will the device function with all these different aspects put in together? How do we integrate this device? That is going to be a big challenge. The next challenge I see is the platform on which the device will run. You may build the best of cars and put in everything in it, but what kind of road can it endure? Do we have enough roads? Do we have enough empty roads? Will it be crowded? Will there be potholes on the roads? So all these things are to be considered, and therefore I would like to see this as a challenge in the nation that we are going to implement this. It's not in isolation, but there should be stability, there should be availability, there should be the will, there should be lots of motivation from all people of all kinds, all areas, all systems. Talking about languages, we have a lovely system of languages, integrating all languages, emphasis given to the mother tongue. But what about encouraging folklore? What about supporting language? Like we said, the art integration. Do we have enough plays, enough theaters, enough of actors? Are we going to expose our children to lots of literary skills? Is all our media going to support us in promoting the local language? Because children will not learn a language till they see a celebrity speak and use it. Otherwise it becomes a language that is used only among common people. Are we speaking the language like the Shuddha Hindi, the Shuddha Marathi, the correct English with proper pauses? Or is it just a literary skills, I can communicate well, it's okay? So who is going to bring all this? We will learn all this when we listen to a lot of good language, a good Shuddha language being spoken around us. How do we create this environment around us? That's a big challenge. Okay? We speak of gender equality and mindset change. Earlier I spoke about ethical decisions, how to make ethical decisions, doing what is right. Now what is ethical is very subjective, depends on the environment, depends on the family, depends on the local and way in which we are brought up, the culture, gender, how do we treat the different genders, especially how do we treat women? Do we have training for that? Is that going to be something different? Will the country support that? Will all adults in the country, all citizens make sure that what we learn in school is also put in practice, or our children listening and experiencing something, and we have various goals over here. So the whole system has to move in sync. We also have something that is always in India, we always default, that is public hygiene. You walk on the road, you don't see a washroom, you don't see any dustbin, there's so much of litter. Is this system going to help us? I'm speaking of the functionality. Can we have also, in addition to all that, we put up a degree in public hygiene, a degree in how to design washrooms everywhere? Do we have laws enforced that these things must be possible in any building, in any new structure? If the city has to move, the city must have at every distance a particular washroom for males, for females. There must be something that is, sanitized and kept clean. We are known for lovely, innovative structures. For example, the modern stations, the Konkan railway stations, if you go, very well built, but the maintenance, the long run sustainability has to be also maintained. So can we do that, or will we lose hope by the time we reach 2025 or 2040? What about the teacher-student ratio in our schools? Practically speaking, our schools, our classrooms, at least in our school, is designed for 50, but there is 60, and government officials and all kinds of pressures force us to increase numbers. They don't look at it, they just say, I want admission. So it goes on to 70, 80, sometimes more. I know classes where there are 80 students in a class. Now, how can we reduce these numbers? That would mean if anybody wants education, we should have a larger number of schools being built. Are there plans? Is there space in a city like Mumbai to build new schools so that more children can be accommodated with the 25 or 30:1 ratio? What about mental health? A lot is spoken about mental health of children. Do we have enough counselors and all these things? Do we have counselors that will be paid as a requirement? Will the law say that a counselor is important, or so many students means you must have one counselor, 100 students to one counselor ratio? These are certain challenges that I see, and I'm sure, as said earlier, these are not only to be met by certain people who make the laws. It's common citizens who will take this forward, and we all have to be conscious, not only now when it is being framed, but all through. Each one of us have to be in the process. For example, the private sector, like this company, Edelweiss, is involved in education. I don't know why it is in education, but you are involved. So in the future, we need to see more such collaboration, more such networkings. I am the principal of my school. I organize things only for my school. But I know that my school is a boys' school, and the sibling works goes to another school. So what happens to that school? Is that school, if the level is low, going to envy this school, or is this child going to envy that school? Why can't the level be the same? Why can't we be principals in the neighborhood and belong to all schools and carry all the siblings with us? Why can't we share resources? All these things very well said, but how can we create a little practicality and functionality and make this happen? For this, we need high motivation from all kinds of stakeholders, from the government, from celebrities, from industries, from well-wished people, from our well-wishers, from ex-students. All these become important stakeholders and be brought together and have to use the same language. It should be part of our what you call corporate social responsibility. All of us must take that very seriously for this to be really effective.
Wonderfully put, Father Jude. Excellent points that you have brought out. While the NEP looks at holistic education, development, etc., Yes, the challenges are numerous, and we know that in every journey, whether it's a journey of our lives or a journey from home to office, there are potholes, right? There are hurdles, there are obstacles, and we, in our individual capacity, for example, if I'm going from home to office, I know how to maneuver those potholes. Similarly, I think when it comes to NEP, and this is my view, I'm sure the panelists will have their experienced views on this, that it can only be a collective effort. We can only maneuver the potholes if we collectively come together, if we join our hands together and we say, okay, as Deepa ma'am said, let's make this a success. And that can be possible if not only the schools come together, but government, private players, people who are, esteemed educationists who have retired, who have the knowledge, everyone comes together. And yes, and I think till the time there is no mentality shift, till the time that we don't change our mentality, we cannot change anything else, right? For example, if we teach our children, do not litter, don't eat your chocolate and throw the wrapper on the road, that's when they will understand that, yes, I need to throw it in the dustbin, and that's how we build on their hygiene. And it's a wonderful point, Father Jude, you brought out that, there should be a degree in hygiene management. I feel that's so relevant in today's day and age, where we see, especially even now in the pandemic, we are seeing people use masks and then just throw it. So a change in the shift, or a shift in mentality, in the way of thinking, is what is required, While our children have moved seamlessly to online classes, online way of education, we as parents still need to monitor what they are doing online. They may be in their room saying, okay, I'm in school, but we really, so each and every one of us, parents, teachers, principals, educators, siblings, the older siblings take care of the younger ones, and everybody needs to get into, supporting each other. And yes, about mental health, which is such an important issue today. We see children being mentally disturbed, getting into depression, having anxiety issues. So we need, we need to have a very collaborative effort coming from government, coming from relevant, multi-pronged approach, as you rightly said. Yes, we have to have psychologists involved, we have to have child psychologists, we have to have people who are in the field of mental health also collaborating with schools, we have to have counselors. So it has to be an overall picture that we look at. And we will someday get there. Baby steps is what is required at this point. Begin with baby steps, just as we teach a child to walk, to stand, to hold hand. So we hold each other's hand, all schools come together, and we do hope for more such engaging talks and webinars where we all can have a closed door session where only principals can come together. We put all our problems on the table, and then we pick them one by one and we say, okay, how best can we do this? Given our limited resources, given our what we have, what is the best way we can go forward? And we look forward to more of those engages and interactions with all of you principals, because you are the ones who are leading your schools, you are the ones who are at the helm, and you are the ones who are taking the next generation, the younger generation of India, into the future, into tomorrow. And so with all of your collaborative help, I feel, and baby steps, we will slowly try to jump over those potholes, if I may say so, and try to achieve the holistic education that we're talking about. It was such an enlightening session, and I would now like to invite Mr. Brian Lobo, our head executive vice president at Edelweiss, to give the vote of thanks. Mr. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, Sheila, I'm here.
Yes, sir. Kindly switch on your webcam. And
yeah, I'll do that.
Sure.
Want to see I have some light on the subject.
Sir, all yours.
Right.
Go ahead.
Distinguished panelists. We had to begin with 95 participants in all principals, which includes, I think, 3 from the Northeast. A very principled audience. At the very outset, on behalf of EdelGive, I feel humbled at the response we received. Thank you, dear principals, for attending, and to give them food for thought was our distinguished panelists. Trust me, I will be brief. I begin with a quote from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. To me, NEP 2020 echoes what Eckhart Tolle said. The past has no power over the present moment. As in any webinar, there were voices, quite a few of them, in fact the majority, lauded NEP 2020, while some had reservations, or rather said it was beset with some challenges. But I think that is the core of education, which should instill in us the ability to listen to almost anything without losing our temper or self-confidence. We need to accept the other point of view without being judgmental or without name-calling. And to me, the single biggest takeaway of NEP 2020 is what C.S. Lewis once wrote famously, that the role of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. I'm afraid that the postscript now will be a little longer than usual, but let me now do the honors. To our chief guest, Srimati Vidya Shah, Chairperson and CEO of EdelGive Foundation, for being gracious enough to accept our invitation at a very short notice and sharing her thoughts in a crisp and inspiring speech. To my dear friend, Shree Atulji, Member Board of Governors, IIM Shillong, for readily agreeing to be part of this program. In fact, Atul and I go a long way. We are part of an institution called FINS, where we are both on the same committee. To Professor Murli Manohar, Member NCRT, to Dr. Srimati Madhushree Sauji, All India Secretary of Vidya Bharati, to Sri Vishal Solanki, Commissioner Education, Government of Maharashtra, to Srimati Deepa Bhushan, Director CP Goenka Group of Schools, who was roped in all her principals to be present for the session. Thank you very much, ma'am. And lastly, to Reverend Father Jude Fernandez, Principal, St. Mary's School. To each one of you, a big thank you. Thanks as well to our principals who really made the program a success. We thank you for your presence. And lastly, to the arduous work put in by my teammate Sheila Quadras, who did a magnificent job as our anchor. Take a bow, Sheila. You really did. And who, along with Bijoy De Silva, put in a lot of elbow grease, burned the midnight oil to ensure this program was glitch-free. Aided, of course, by our redoubtable marketing team, comprising Sheena Kapoor, Arjun Koshal, Supriya Govekar, the one who designed the posters, Hari Nair, Bhavisha Jogi, and the marketing team's conscience keeper, Priscilla Rodriguez, as well as Dipesh Tang. These were like Jeeves, who actually turned out collaterals, put the webinar and all the protocols in place to ensure a glitch-free program at a very, very short notice. To each of you, dear colleagues, my grateful thanks. And finally, let's make the most of the weekend. This webinar has given us an impetus, at least, to do another one, this time catering to higher education, fulfilling the wishes of what the Honorable President said a few days ago, urging us to do numerous such of these and to popularize the NEP 2020. Edelweiss Be Unlimited will be doing just this. And finally, I leave you with a thought of Margaret Mead. I hope NEP 2020 instills in children how to think and not what to think. Thank you very much to each one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Brian
Thank you,
Lobo.
Sheila. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I would
Thank
like
you,
to
ma'am.
say that I couldn't have put this together without the efforts of Shree Atul Kulkarni to begin with, who, I kept, sir, if I, kept troubling you for this, that, and the other, and, he was the one who showed me the way. And my partner in crime, Bijoy De Silva.
Absolutely.
Who's been with me shoulder to shoulder throughout the planning, the execution of this NEP. Bijoy, you need to unmute.
Thank you, Shaila.
Thank you, Dr. Madhushree, for joining us.
Incidentally, by the way, today is 11th September 1893.
Yes.
Swamiji made that
Yeah,
famous
first.
speech at the World Religious Congress.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
And,
So I would like to
I think
say-
that's what the education is all about, to be rather than to do.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
To be,
So a
yeah.
big thank you to my colleague Bijoy as well, who stood shoulder to shoulder with me in organizing this, in getting all the nitty-gritty details.
I think to interrupt Sheila, I think Bijoy burned the rubber.
Absolutely, absolutely, sir. And thank you, Bijoy, for helping me with this. Shree Atulji, thank you so much. Dr. Madhushree Sauji, we were really privileged to have you on our panel. Srimati Deepa Bhushan ji, it was really lovely talking to you, and I will keep in touch with you. We will,
Pleasure.
have more such sessions, and I think we really connected, and so it was lovely talking to you on this forum as well. Professor Murli, we are so privileged to have you as part of our panel. We thank you for taking out your time and joining us today. I also have to thank Father Jude for taking out your time and bringing up all those challenges which now we know we have to work on, and we will together with you work on those, at least trying to do our bit as well to help all the schools overcome those challenges. I would also like to thank Shri Vishal Solanki ji. Most of all, I would like to thank our chief guest for this session, Mrs. Vidya Shah, and all her efforts in EdelGive towards education, towards women's empowerment. We are all extremely, extremely proud of her and the work that she's doing. I'd like to also thank Hari Nair, Arjun, Dipesh, and all at marketing and communications as well as EdelGive for helping us at the very last minute, as Brian said, but they ensured that the webinar went off without a glitch. So really, thank you. And finally, all of the participants. This wouldn't be possible without our participants, our dear principals, and we look forward to strengthening our relationships with you and talking more about NEP, going that extra mile with you. Wherever you need us, that Bijoy and me are just a phone call away. Do reach out to us. Have a happy weekend, and thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Murli ji.
Thank you,
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.